Okay, if you've ever had an app idea that you've always wanted to build, but you've had no idea how to build it, well then this video is for you. In the next 15 minutes, we are gonna build a real working app that you can share with the world today. This is our second video in our series, so if you like what you see here, feel free to check out that first video as a fast follow. Even if you are an absolute beginner and have no idea what coding is, I will make sure that you can follow along. All you need is just a tiny spark of an idea, some AI tools, and the ability to type letters on a keyboard. And trust me, this is not a watch and forget kind of tutorial. We are going to go from a blank screen to a working app that you can actually share with real people by the end of this video. Let's get started. So here is our dead simple game plan. Step one, we're going to take this spark of an idea and we're actually going to flesh it out using AI. Specifically, we're going to use Claude for that. The idea here is that we give this spark of an idea to Claude and have Claude flesh it out, maybe build more of a robust product idea, and then have Claude give us a prompt that we could then supply into Lovable to actually do the heavy lifting of building the front end. This is what we call meta prompting. In addition to the spark of the idea though, this time around, I want to include some opinions on how the design and aesthetic of the application should look like. I wasn't super happy with the aesthetic that we did in the first video, so I want to come in with some more opinions. And the idea here is that in addition to this more fleshed out, robust product idea that Claude will include in the prompt that we give to Lovable, it'll also add in very light elements of a basic design system. More on that later. So once we get the prompt, we go to step two, we paste that prompt into Lovable, and we have Lovable generate the front end of our application. Now, when I say front end, I simply mean the part of the application that users actually see, the interface itself. From there, we'll then have to think about the backend. So when I say things like backend, what I really mean is a database. So that way we can store data from our application. We can eventually have user accounts, users be able to log in, things like that. So we're going to use Supabase as the provider of that backend. What's great is that Lovable and Supabase tend to play nicely together. So our third step is really just setting up a project in Supabase and integrating it with Lovable. Then we go to our fourth step. Once we've set up that project in Supabase, we then have to set up the database and then actually generate all the auth stuff in our app. When I say auth stuff, I really just mean giving users the ability to sign up and sign in. Finally, we will then install analytics and we'll use Lightswitch for that. So that way we know what's working, what's not, and we just generally have a sense of what's happening under the hood. Now, if you haven't heard of any of these tools, no worries. I've included the links below, and we're going to get into it a little bit more later in this video. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Sunny. I'm a serial founder currently on my fourth startup. I'm a former senior engineer at Bloomberg and Shopify, and I'm currently an adjunct professor at Columbia Business School where I teach technology. I've been in this industry for over a decade, well before the AI stuff we're seeing right now. And I have made all the mistakes so you don't have to. And I'm here to actually help you get your ideas off the ground and into the world. Let's get started with our first step. All right, so let's actually get started with talking about the idea of what we're going to go ahead and build today. So here's what I'm thinking, a Pomodoro app specifically for writers. So I've been doing this long enough to notice a pattern in terms of product ideas and product strategies, specifically what products tend to win and what don't. And some of the most effective apps out there are the ones that are built essentially around an existing idea, but then tailor-made and tailor-customized for a specific audience. So what I was thinking here is we take this idea of a Pomodoro timer, which we all know exactly what that is, but repurpose it for a niche, specifically for writers who are struggling to write their first book. So again, this is a familiar concept, but we're applying it to a specific use case. So it instantly feels fresh and valuable. Now, you might be wondering, what could a Pomodoro for writers look like? Well, it could break reminders. It could have break reminders that tell you to stretch, to maybe brainstorm some new ideas, to refill your coffee. It could potentially track word counts per session. And it could also give you a history log of how productive you've been over time. In terms of aesthetic, I also want to come in here with some idea. So I want to go super minimal, super black and white with maybe like a chic newspaper typewriter feel. So that's kind of the direction that we're going to take this. All right, so now let's get started with the actual first step of our process, which is going to Claude and generating a prompt that we could then plug into Lovable. I've prepared our first prompt over here, which is very simply, I want to build a Pomodoro app for writers. I'm going to build this in Lovable, so generate a prompt. So we're telling Claude here that we want the deliverable will be a prompt that we then feed into Lovable. And then I kind of give it some more guidance. This app should be specific to writers struggling to write a book. It can have things like break reminders, instructing the user to stretch or brainstorm. It can have word count, things like that. I also include some direction on aesthetic. So here I say, also, it should have a very minimal design aesthetic that is black and white and has a newspaper and typewriter feel. So that's the prompt. Again, I will include that in my links below. So what I'm doing now is I'm copying that and I'm going to just plug this in to Claude here. And we will see what Claude comes back with. All right, she is thinking. Cool, so we have some basic core features. We have some writer-specific features, so it kind of gave us some of the kind of table stakes for a Pomodoro application here. And then we get into some of the more writer-specific, so the specific value adds that we're adding in here for our niche demographic. It also indicates some of the design aesthetic stuff here. Cool. So this looks good to me. The color palette looks solid. Let's now go ahead and we'll copy this and we will throw this into Lovable. All right. So I'm going to paste this here and let's get this going. So again, a reminder, this is a fairly meaty prompt. There's a lot going on here that we just fed into Lovable. So Lovable is going to take some time here because what it's doing is it's building our entire front end. And again, front end means what our users will see. So let's take a moment and see what we're going to get on the other side of this. All right, so Lovable is done building the first version of our application. And again, it's just the front end. And this looks cute. It's giving a little bit of newspaper chic here. Very simple, very minimal, maybe a little sophisticated. So I would definitely say a level up from the app that we built in the last video. But, obviously there's still room for improvement. This is probably a good time to remind you all that the most important thing is to just get something up and running and out there into the world. In the industry, we call that shipping something out. It's very, very important to do. You're going to learn 100 times faster by having a product out there than just sitting on various ideas, especially in this very dynamic environment that we find ourselves in. Now, I mentioned that this is just the front end, not the back end. So if I actually add stuff here, then it's not actually saving anything. It's just every user is going to see basically what we have here. We need a backend. And what I mean by that is we need a database so we can hold user data, and that way users can sign up and they can have their own way of tracking some of these statistics that we see here. So that's where Supabase comes in. Supabase will essentially give us the capability of having a database, and then we can go ahead and set up our auth stuff. So this is now step 3, connecting a Supabase project. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a Supabase project and then integrate it with Lightswitch. But just so you know, Supabase will run you about $10 per month per project. So I just want to make that clear. But listen, that's less than a cocktail and way more useful for building our app. So let's go ahead and set that up. All right. so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click this Connect Supabase button, and I'm going to click this Connect a Project here. So here you actually have to select your project, but in our case, we actually don't have a project because this is brand new. So I'm going to go ahead and create this. I'm going to click this Create Project button here. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create a Supabase project in Supabase. We'll have to have a name for it. Just for consistency, I want to name it exactly what Lovable has named the project here. Not required. They're calling it Write Ink Chrono. All right, we'll go with it. Write Ink Chrono. Did I get that right? Yeah, cool. And then we'll need to supply some password here, and then we can go ahead and create the project. Cool. So that has been created. We're now going to go back to Lovable and click on Connect Supabase again, and then connect the project that we just created. So we should see that here. Perfect. So now what we've done is we've set up the Supabase project and we've linked it to our Lovable project. This is our step 3 in our process. Cool. So now that we have set that up, now we actually need to go ahead and set up a table that will contain user accounts. Before I do, I just want to walk you through exactly what we got with Supabase. So I'm going to go back to Supabase here. So this is our Supabase project. This is essentially our backend for our application. There's a lot of different menu items here. We're just going to click in this table editor. So this is where the data that gets logged in our application is going to be. You'll notice it's empty because we don't have any data at this point, and we don't even have any tables. We actually have to instruct Lovable to set up tables. So we're now officially in step 4, where we set up users and set up the whole auth process, which is users being able to sign in and users being able to log in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Lovable and I'm going to paste in this prompt down here. Let's set up user accounts in Supabase and then set up the login and sign up flows. So the first part of this is setting up user accounts in Supabase. That basically means just build a table so that way I can collect user data and user accounts there. And then once that's done, let's then set up our login and sign up form. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send here. So anytime that Lovable makes a change in your database, it will tell you before it actually makes the change, so that way you can approve it. Anytime that a database structure changes, it's actually done through what we call a migration, which is just a fancy word for changing the structure of a database. But we don't actually have to get into the specifics of that here. So what it's doing is it's creating that structure change here. And all we need to do is just click this approve button. And now it'll run that, and it's actually changing the structure of our database in Supabase. So it's thinking, let's see what it's doing. Cool. So it looks like it changed this structure. Now we have the database set up. Now it's going to set up the user interfaces for login and sign up. So while it's doing that, let's actually go back here, and I'm going to refresh my page and see that, look, now we have a lot of different tables. Fantastic. Still no data here, but we have tables. The reason we don't have data is because we don't have any users yet. So we're going to do that in a moment, but we're making progress here. Before we continue, though, I actually want to go and show you one more thing. So a lot of different menu items. We don't have to get too bogged down in all the details here, but I do want to go to this authentication section. And I want to go and click on this sign in providers configuration. So these are just configurations around how we want to set up the authentication mechanism. Or in other words, how we want to set up users being able to sign up or log in, right? So one of the menu items here is this confirm email, which is currently switched on. I'm actually going to switch it off. So let me tell you what this is doing here. By default, this is usually switched on, which basically means that when a brand new user signs up, before they can log in, they actually have to confirm their sign up with an email. So they'll put in their email and they'll get a confirmation email, and they have to click this special link to activate their account. That is turned on by default, and that is actually best practice. And when we push this live, we'll actually switch this back on. The reason I'm turning it off now is because I want to be able to test this super quickly. So I can put in a bunch of fake email addresses just to make sure everything's working, and I can kick the tire. So this is really just something I'm doing for ease of testing. So just wanted to clarify that here. So once that's done, let's go back and see how Lovable is doing. All right. So cool. It has a sign up, sign in form here. Let's go ahead and actually test this, right? So before I do the sign up, I want to test login here. This should give me an error because we have no users. So let me put in a fake email address. Great. So we got an error message. An error message is exactly what we were expecting here. Now that we know that the sign in is working with bad credentials, let's actually sign up here. So I'm going to say my name is Sunny. We'll use this fake email, and then we'll go ahead and create this account. Great. So we just created this account. Now I'm going to sign in, and it looks like we were able to sign in correctly. Fantastic. And just as a final check, I'm going to go back to my tables here, my table editor, and look, you will see that I have my name here along with the session duration and all kinds of stuff. Again, nothing more affirming or exciting than seeing your name in a database, right? Am I wrong? All right, cool. So we have successfully finished step 4. So let's continue with our last step, which is integrating analytics with Lightswitch. So I just want to make this one point. Most people, they'll usually stop right now. And that's fine. You can have a project up and running, but having analytics is a very important step. It essentially separates the hobby projects from the projects that could very well become something real and something that someone could make money off of. So what I'm going to do is we're going to integrate Lightswitch. Now, full disclosure, this is something that I have built. I built this analytics project because I spent a ton of time on Reddit talking to vibe coders there, also a bunch of meetups around town talking to vibe coders there. And I realized that this is kind of a table stakes requirement that a lot of people skip over because a lot of the existing solutions are very bloated and not really designed for vibe coders. So I wanted to build this super dead simple analytics product that can be integrated with 1 or 2 clicks and design a very simple dashboard. We really want to just maintain as much simplicity at this stage in the game. Because if you do want this to be a serious app, you need to have some visibility on how people are using that app, so then you could iterate and make things better. Cool. So let's actually go ahead and integrate this into Lightswitch. So I'm going to go to getlightswitch.com and then click on this tiny usage. We're calling it the tiny usage dashboard because it's very small, it's very simple, and it basically accomplishes one task and one task well. All right, so let's get started. So what is the name of our application? It's Write-in Chrono. Cool. So we'll call it Write-in Chrono. So again, we support a lot of different vibe coding tools. We're going to use Lovable for this. I'm going to feed in my project URL. Great. My name is Sunny. We'll say writeinkchrono@gmail.com. All right, so I've gone ahead and created my application. Now, all I'm going to do is just copy this prompt. It'll open up the project for me, which is very convenient, and then I just need to paste this in. Now, what this prompt is doing is it's hooking it up into Lightswitch. It's tracking only the things it needs to track. So what that's doing is it's installing Lightswitch into my project and connecting it and tracking only the things that it needs to track. So while that's working, let's give Lovable a few moments to get that going. All right, so Lovable is done integrating with Lightswitch. This should be connected. I'm going to go back to my onboarding and indicate that we have successfully pasted this in. I'm gonna hit continue, and it looks like we're all set. It detected a connection, which is a good sign, and then we can finish our onboarding. And this is the analytics dashboard that we'll have available to us to monitor the success of our application. These are really only the metrics that we need to know. Really, just getting those first 100 signups is the most important thing at this stage of the game, and you will learn so much in that process. And right, so we have now finished all 5 steps of our process. That's it. We had just a spark of an idea to now we have a live Pomodoro for Writers app in under 15 minutes. We started with a generic idea, we niched it down, gave it some opinion on a clear aesthetic, so it feels made for the audience. Now it's your turn. What I want you to do is build this app. You can certainly add your own twist to it. I want you to push it live and share it in the comments so that way I can potentially feature it. And just remember, I'll leave you with this. The more specific your app is to an audience, the easier it will stand out. This approach works for almost anything. Now go make something your niche didn't even know they needed. Thank you.